the RTI and actually coming to us. One of the biggest things that we have to talk about is documenting the documentation, the interventions and the strategies that you're using in class. If there's not a way for you to document, and when you document, you can use a sticky note. If you're doing phonics, if you're using flashcards, show where that child is missing letters, missing sounds, or whatever he's doing. But if it's something that you're using and you cannot document it, please do not use it, because you need to show it on your intervention sheet. Now, on your intervention sheet, and I see that the one that we're supposed to use is this academic intervention documentation form A. It has a little thing here that says for interventions. If you need to write it on 2 or 3 lines, please do so, okay? Make sure that you're letting us know the frequency. How many times you're using it a week, 15 minutes. If it's not working for 15 minutes and you've used it for 8 minutes, then you need to bump your time up, okay? Because that's something that we're gonna go to twice a week, duration, 15 minutes, if you're gonna use it weekly or bi-weekly. Then there's gotta be a way that you can assess whatever you use. If you're using phonics, I did find some stuff, say if you were doing new sounds and letters, because that child has problem with phonics. And this is something that I found on the web. These are intervention strategies that you can use. Take this sheet after you've done this, flip it over, and then document. Show where that child, that sound he's still missing, he or she's still missing, they're still having problems with it. If you got 26 sounds that you've introduced to this child and they only have 15, please document, because that's one of the biggest things that we have the problem with is the documentation. If we do not have the documentation, then we're gonna have to ask them to go back to the table to get more documentation. And that, of course, it makes the process just a little bit longer. I pulled some other interventions here, a 1-minute dash, or intervention for fluency. Some of our upper grade kids, we know that they have problems with fluency. Then this is something that you can use with them. I did not make copies. You're welcome to make copies off of this. I'll pass it around. But all of this is on the web, and it shows you where I found it. But you can make copies of it. But anything that you're doing, if you're doing fluency, do a passage. If you want to do 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs, okay? Bump that child up to 2 paragraphs. I bumped them up. We're doing this. We started out with 15 minutes. Okay, then what we need to do, we're going to bump them up to 30 minutes. You may not do it all in one day. It's hard to do something 30 minutes in one day. You may have to do it twice a week. Okay, if you do it twice a week, then at the end of the week, then you turn around, give that child that same passage, and you go through it and let him, male, female, read it, and then you mark through. You can say then that, hey, I did this with them several times, they're not making progress, then we've got to move on to something else. You cannot give the same intervention strategy, you cannot use it over and over again, okay? You need to use more than 1, more than 2, more than 3. If you mark on your documentation that he or she's making progress, then there's no reason for them to have a referral to us. If they have grades, ABCs, there's no reason for them to make a referral to us, y'all, because that means that they're making progress in the class. Sight words is one of the biggest things that our kids have a problem with, and I pulled this off of the web, the first 100 sight words. Give it to them, work with them, however you're going to work with them. This is enough here probably for 8 weeks. Work with them, then you turn around and you evaluate them. Make sure you evaluate them. You can say that, yes, they missed this, no, they did not miss this. Document, that's the biggest thing. We have to have the documentation to say, yes, this is working, no, this is not working.
For my standpoint, the handout that Ms. Hamilton is speaking of, this one, I think this is the one she said that you all are supposed to be doing your documentation on. This is great, and also if you document on your work samples as well, what you're doing. That's wonderful too, if you put on there. Yes.
What's that form called?
It says Academic Intervention Documentation Form A. I have seen some teachers who actually document on their work samples, what they've been doing to help the child. You know, we always get the concern, which is fine, because we want to know what the concern is, whether it's phonics, reading comprehension, whatever you're working on with them. But we also need to know what you're doing to help them with that concern. So that's where that documentation comes from.
And this form actually comes out of your RTI book. So Ms. Wren has this, she'll get it to you, and for you to use, because this is what we're supposed to use as district. one of the things we were talking about, as far as the documentation, anyway, documentation and documenting stuff. I know you give us work samples. We have to have work samples of that child where he's actually attempted to do things in the class. That says that, hey, he can't do this, okay? Then where you go back with your intervention strategies, where you're going back and you're putting interventions in place to help him with whatever skill it is that you say he has a deficit in, then, okay, I think I gave somebody something where they said that the child has addition problems. Okay, you can go and pull sheets off the internet and you can cut them. Give it to them. Turn around and give them something else, same thing, same skill, and let them take a test on it. That's assessing them. You've got to assess them, you've got to show the documentation, but giving us the worksheets that you've been giving us from class, we need those, but also we need the intervention strategies. We need some type of documentation from that. You need a worksheet, you need, a lot of times I use sticky notes. If I'm assessing a child and they're doing letter naming or sound, something like that, then what I'm doing, I'm writing down the date, letter sound fluency. Okay, and I'm saying that yes, he missed this, he missed that. I just put A through Z, and I'll say check X, check X. And that's all it is just documenting and saying, yes, this child is making progress, no, he's not making progress. And then we can compare it. Take all of that stuff and put it together, put it in your RTI folder, and then once we come to the table, we have something to look at and something to compare. Starting whatever weeks you're supposed to have it, 8 weeks, or however many weeks you're supposed to have it. But if you give us a documentation sheet and it's got yes, that they're making progress, then that strategy that you have evidently is working in place. And there's nothing that we can do extra that can help them if they're making progress using those strategies in class.
And make sure the work samples relate to whatever the concern is. If the concern is in reading, then those are the work samples that we need. You don't have to bring us math if you don't have any concerns with math. If it's reading and math, then bring both work samples for that.
Question? Now, I do have something here that tells us the reasons why the referral could be denied, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna pass this out. And the reasons that are on here, we have actually 8 questions at the end of a referral form that has to be answered every time we take a referral. First of all, we need to know who's making the referral. Is it the math teacher? Is it the reading teacher? We have to know, because somebody has to be on that form saying, yes, I made the referral. If you make the referral, please have the documentation. You know, you can't say I'm gonna make the referral, but then I know nothing about it. Speech referrals, there's no such thing as a speech referral. All referrals, when we look at it, we're looking at the whole child. A lot of times when we get a referral, sometimes the teacher come in and they'll say, hey, that child has some problems, speaking difficulties. Okay, so I have to invite Ms. Hightower, but a lot of times if you see Ms. Hightower in the hallway, shoot her an email and ask her to come by and just kind of listen to that child and just see if there's something that needs to be a concern, if it's dialect or if it's something that maybe we can work on. A student making A's, B's, and C's on a report card, that is a reason why a referral could be denied, because that means that child is passing. Student has made adequate progress with the interventions. If they make progress, and if you've shown that progress and say, yes, he's making progress, when we get, I think it's the Compass Learning printout. I got one, and one said, they said it was something about phonics. Okay, the phonics said everything the child did in phonics, it made 100. So that child made progress. There was nothing that I could say that was actually affecting that child academically in class. Documentation of measurable annual data is not included. If the data is not included, I have 2 that I sent out, and I'm going to come by and pick up the data. If I ask you for the data, give it to me. I take it and I put it in the folder, whatever you have, okay? Usually I try to check with you a day before and say, hey, you know we're getting ready for our meeting, so please get your data together. Let me have it so that I can have it at the table.
And the data is the documentation of the evidence, the interventions.
All required forms that are not included in the packet. One of the things that we need cum folder information. Getting to the table and say, has this child been retained? That's something that we have to know, because that gives us a pattern of strengths and weaknesses. If this child's had A's in 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, then all of a sudden in 4th grade they start failing, then okay, then that's something we need to know. They've been retained at another school, they've been transient, where they've moved 2 or 3 different times. Those are things that we have to document, because all of that comes into play with a child, because if that child is, if mom is running them up and down the road, then that's what we have to look at, okay, then they're transit, there's a possibility that they could need some help. Forms are not completely filled out, the biggest thing is documentation, documentation. Appropriate instruction, we know that they have appropriate instruction with the teachers because we're all here highly qualified. The thing is the research-based programs. If you're using something in your room, print it off. Bring it to the table. Put it in that folder. When you give your folder to RTI, there's supposed to be some additional documentation that you're gonna have that you're gonna put in that folder. Because it's not complete until we actually sit there at the table and say yay or nay that this child is actually gonna make the cut. We don't put people in special ed, they have to be tested. And when they're tested, they have to follow up under one of the 13 exceptionalities. And they have to test in. So if we don't have the documentation, that's one of our biggest problems. If there's a 504 plan in place, make sure that that 504 plan is in that folder. Everything needs to be in the folder once it comes to us, because once it comes to us, it belongs to us. It's our folder. That child becomes a child that's covered under IDEA until we decide, come back to the table and looking on the data collection, and it's decided that this child actually meets the qualification based on the Alabama Administrative Code. Any more questions? Comments?